All right, I'm going to do the traffic cone now, and I know some of you have already been working on this, but this is the way I do it. First, I'm going to go over to my website, and I'm going to borrow this image from the front page. I'm going to copy the image, then I'm going to go back to, I was just right-click, copy image. Then I'm going to go back over here and making sure I'm on the references layer. You can see I've got the green leaf there already. I'm going to paste this in, and let me zoom out. I'm just going to place it above the artboard that I'm working on, and I'll lock that layer. Okay, so now you can see I've got that locked. I'm going to move to my traffic cone layer. It's on my traffic cone artboard. Remember, we labeled all these, or we have a corresponding artboard for each of the drawings. If you double click right here, it'll zoom you in right to the layer that you're going to be working on. On the layers, just want to make sure that all the rest of them are locked except for the traffic cone. I did that little bit of isolating there by holding the Option key down, and you can isolate a single layer at a time by just holding the Option key and clicking on the visibility. You'll see that that locks everything except the layer that you're working on. Okay, for the traffic cone, I usually start with the polygon tool, and I just click instead of drawing a polygon because I just want a three-sided polygon, and that's of course a triangle. All right, I take my direct selection tool and I'll deselect and then select just the bottom of this path. I'm going to bring this down. I'm holding the Shift key down while I do this so that it goes, so the bottom of the triangle goes straight down. And you can see I'm just trying to kind of imitate that general shape. Maybe something like that. All right? Okay. Now, a couple of things we need to do here. I want to zoom in on the bottom. I want to use my reshape tool. Actually, first I want to put it on a grid. I want to turn my grid on. I hope you can see that. And I'm going to center my triangle so that it's over here on, centered on the grid. You can see I'm looking right at the point up there at the top, and now it's centered on that grid. Okay. Now back down here at the bottom, that gives me a good spot to put this reshape tool, anchor point, reshape tool. You remember that's under the scale tool. Object has to be selected before the reshape tool will work. Click right there, then press the back to the direct selection tool, and then select that one all by itself. And I'm just clicking down about 5 or 6 clicks there. Okay, now that looks pretty good, but we can make it even better if we make these corners into curves. You remember we have a special tool for that. It's the pen tool with the Option key held down. And so I'm going to click right here and I'm going to pull up. Now I'm keeping that one handle so that it's parallel or following that left side of the triangle. See how that makes it into a nice curve? Okay. Remember, doing this, it's a clockwise motion, so I went up on this side. I'd have to go left at the bottom to go on this one, Option key, click and pull down. And you just want to try to kind of keep that side really square, and you just pull that down. See how much nicer that looks instead of having those sharp corners? That's more like reality too. Anything that's round on the bottom never has a sharp corner unless you're looking at it exactly straight from the side. Okay, so there's how it looks when I'm all finished. Okay, I'm going to give this a little better color just so I can work with it. The indication on the assignment is a green, so I'll start with a kind of a green color here. Okay, so now you see what I've got, and there's my cone so far. All right, now I also want to kind of lop off the top of it here. I'm going to use my line segment tool here, and I'm just going to, I don't want it too close to the top, and I don't want it too far down, so maybe right about here. I'm going to hold the Shift key down and make a perfect straight line. Then go to the black arrow. I'm going to select both. See, I didn't mean to do that. I'm going to select both objects. Remember, the black arrow is also a rotate tool. Okay, with them both selected, I'm going to go over here to Pathfinder, and I want to use this option right here. It's called Divide. See what that does? It breaks the cone in two. Now, it's still a grouped object, so you can't just select it with the black arrow. Try the white, and you can see that indeed it just cuts off the top. Now, if that doesn't look like, to me that looks a little narrow still, you can always undo and select the path and just move it down a little further. Probably about there is better. Okay, then again, select it with the black arrow, so you got both of them. Do that. Go back to the white arrow. Those shortcuts really help, don't they? A for the direct selection tool, B for the selection tool. And you can just take the top of it off, just that easy. Okay, notice I haven't bothered about scaling. It's still really tiny, but you know, you can always make it bigger, and we will here in a second. Okay, now I know from doing this before that I'm going to need an extra copy of this. I've waited till I added the curves here at the bottom and cut off the top because I want it to be an exact fit. I'm going to just click and drag and make an extra copy right here with my Option key. Okay, we'll come back to that in a second. Okay, up here I need to divide this. I need 1, 2, 3, I think it's 4 divisions. 1, 2, 3, 4. The bottom is the narrowest, then a little bit wider, then a real wide one, then a not so wide one. These two are actually about equal. And here's how I've done it in the past. I'm going to use my ellipse tool, L for short, and I'm just going to come up somewhere above this, right in the middle, and I want to make a perfect ellipse growing out from its center. Hold the Option key down, and remember your ellipse tool will do such a thing. Now I'm trying to kind of imagine a curve along the front of that cone, and I want to divide it where you see those two objects overlapping. Okay, now you could use the divide command over here, but when I do that, oh yeah, you have to have both things selected. When I do that, it leaves a lot of extra pieces here. Not a big deal. I just have to take that off, and then I have to select this, and you can see that it's separate. So you can use the Pathfinder panel. It's no big deal. I'm going to go back to my ellipse tool and make a second one. Here, add the Option key and bring it down until it cuts. I'm looking right there at where the two things intersect. Right there. Where those two things intersect is where I need to divide. I'll select them both and use a Pathfinder. Then I'll select this object separate and delete it. And you can see, maybe, if you look, you can see that it actually is cutting that thing apart. I'm going to undo that because I'm not ready to divide those like that yet. Okay. In fact, we won't be doing that. We're going to leave them in register. Okay, ellipse, and start drawing. Then hold the Option key and just bring it down to the next location. You have to just kind of really look at the drawing and compare it to the shapes that you've got. You want this curve to sort of make logical sense with the bottom. Okay, select them both and divide. Okay, then deselect, select this guy, and they're grouped, so you got to do it with the direct selection tool. Anytime you see that everything selects, that just means it's grouped. You can ungroup it, but you can also just pick it with the white arrow. Okay, one more time, ellipse. Notice you don't have to go way up here to start this. Just grow it from the middle out using your Option key, and then flatten it until it looks like it works. Okay, I'm always kind of looking at the bottom compared to how that looks right there. Okay, then we'll select both objects, divide, direct selection tool, and get rid of the circle. Now you see that I've divided it into 5 pieces, right? I'm going to undo that, Command Z, because that's the way I want to leave it, is right like that. Now just select every other piece, use a white arrow for this. So I've got those 2 pieces selected. Let me zoom back out. I'm going to fill this with a white or maybe a light gray. And you can see that looks pretty good. Okay, now I've saved this other one in reserve back here, and I'll show you what I'm going to do with it next. I'll actually take this and fill it with black for now. Now there might be a way to kind of shortcut that, but for my simple brain, it just helps to kind of make it black. I guess you could do it with a gray or another color like that if that helps. But remember, it's not transparent if it's gray. If I use black and make it transparent, then it'll work as a shadow over here. And truly, I've got an even better idea. I'm going to use this line segment tool, and I'm going to just come up above it where you see that center point highlight with your smart guides. I'm going to drag it and move it like off this way. Okay, again, if you'll select both shapes, use the divide. Now what that has done is it's made this so that you can pick one side free from the other. You have to use a white arrow again. The object is grouped. It's sort of auto groups. Okay, and you just bring this over. Smart Guide's helping me place that in. Go to my transparency, and you can kind of see what I'm up to. I'll make that side just have a little bit of a shadow on it. Now, there is a better way, I think, and I'll show you that as soon as I apply the other one. Okay, I'm going to use the line segment tool. I just come back up here and I come above the middle there and just come back down this way. Then select both objects. It's grouped again, so you may have to use the white arrow, or you could use the group selection tool. Either one of them will work here. Select them both, and Pathfinder and divide. Okay, now you could just delete this one. We don't need it. Bring this one over and land it on this right side. And here's my plan here. Again, you could just make this transparent. It looks pretty good when it's just transparent. But if you'll fill this with a fade to black gradient instead, it looks even better. Let me show you. I'm going to select that gray that I just put on there. Let me go ahead and save this. I don't think I've even saved this yet for the first time. Let me save here. And I'll make a folder 2. Okay, and I'll call this, I think we called it intermediate. Something like that. All right, so now I've got it saved. Good, I feel much more comfortable now. All right, so let's turn this into a fade to black gradient. There are some gradient swatches up here that will work for this. If you look, you may have it already there. It's called Super Soft Black. Okay, it's made with a radial treatment, so as you pick it, it may. Well, and I just added a stroke. I didn't mean to do that. Let me make sure this is forward. Remember, you can do that from your gradient panel as well. I'm just going to fill this with a super soft black vignette. I don't know if you saw what happened there, but I accidentally added the gradient to the stroke. We can now do that, and I saw some very good uses of that, but that's not what I intended this time. I want the fill to be that super soft. You can see it kind of filling in there, but that's not exactly the idea that I'm after. Notice that the super soft black is a radial gradient. If you'll just change it to a linear gradient and then use your gradient tool, And there's some funny stuff about this gradient tool when I'm using it for this. That's kind of the idea. I want to just cut across and put a soft gradient going around it like this, sort of makes it look round. Okay, and so I'm kind of going at an angle that's 90 degrees to this edge. Depending on where you stop, we'll leave more gradient. I have noticed, this is odd, but the annotator disappears on this side. It's like, for some reason, when we divided it, it's no longer active for both halves of this grouped object. But doesn't that look nice? Let me just roll it over there. You see, it's going. It's a gradient, but it's just going from like nearly nothing to a little bit, and it's right here in your gradient panel. If you click on that, you can see that the first black there is 0. The one in the middle is 65, and the one on the outside is 95. Okay, so it's meant to be somewhat transparent. Okay, now once you've got one of them, remember you can eyedropper off of an existing one, and you can add your super soft linear gradient to this side. Now, this side has the annotator, and I think that's a little odd, but we want it to go back the other way. And wow, that looks pretty good. Now remember, with the annotator, you get some additional options that you don't have when the annotator automatically disappears. You can make that so it looks nice gradient going around that side. Isn't that nice? We used both cuts off of that extra copy and made it into this what they call super soft black. I call it fade to black. Pretty nice. Let's just tuck this back in here. Okay, so now we got the front of it. The top is really no problem at all. I'm going to zoom in on the top here. To do the top, I just use an ellipse. And just doing it like, I'm just going to place it right over that and just draw my ellipse until it's back over here. Let me raise that up. Just put it in place right there. Okay, now I've still got it filled with that black, that fade to black. If you'll fill it with one of your the colors that's included in that's in your design, that same green, it looks pretty good. Okay, now on top of that one, just place another ellipse. I'm going to put it right here, and I'm going to make it a little narrow on the top and the bottom, and a little bit wider on the sides. In other words, there's a little more space here than there is here. From here to here, it's narrow. From here to here, it's kind of wide. Just fill that with a black and white gradient, and it'll look like there's a hole going down inside the cone. Now you can even modify that if you like. If you bring out your gradient tool, maybe fill the dark side of it with green instead of dark green instead of black, and look how that looks. That looks pretty good. Okay, see, I'm going on almost 19 minutes here, so I better stop. Let me make this into two movies.